Welcome back to another Chatting with Wisdom. I am Geegado Megwan, spirit name, which means talking feather woman, and I'm also known as Rollie Allaire. I empower women to stand on their truth so that they feel fulfilled and can achieve all their desires. This unscripted weekly interview series is to help support successful women who feel misunderstood and disempowered in personal relationships and stand in their truth so that they can communicate with confidence. Join me for a Stand in Your Truth call where we'll explore what's blocking you from communicating with confidence in your personal relationship. This week, I'd like to introduce Jelina Shah, and we will be talking about how to break up with diabetes, a holistic approach to health. Dr. Jelina Shah is a clinical pharmacist and a holistic diabetes health coach for people with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes with over 15 years of healthcare experience. Jelina approaches diabetes differently. Not only does she address the medications and the health risks associated with diabetes, but she also focuses on the root cause by attending to the emotional and mental aspects of the disease. She has helped hundreds of patients sustain lower blood sugars, lose weight, and take fewer medications so that they can live their happiest, healthiest lives. If you want to control or even reverse your diabetes holistically, then visit her website and schedule a Healthy Hero consult. So, how are you, Jelina?
I'm so great. I'm so happy to be here and talk with you. It's like my favorite thing to connect with people. So I'm loving this.
And especially when it's on a topic that you love the most, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. I know. I'm like obsessed with health. I'm obsessed with it. So like I get so passionate and I cannot wait to talk about it. So you're right. Like, yeah, nothing's better than that. This is my jam. Yeah.
Well, and as I was getting ready for this call, one of the things that I noticed is your Facebook group. And so you actually called it Sugar Bombs. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, my Facebook group, they're called the Sugar Bombs. And then on TikTok, I'm Dr. Sugar Bombs. I get on there and spill some truths. But yeah, it's super fun. It's a great, loving, supportive community. That was my biggest thing. I was like, I want people to feel supported and loved because there's so much stigma behind a lot of especially chronic diseases, like ones like diabetes. People feel responsible or that they ended up in a situation where they're having to deal with high blood sugars. So I wanted to create a space that didn't have any judgment, that celebrated people and like places where people could feel like they could vent openly and feel supported.
I love that. And like I said, I just was getting ready and I'm like, oh, of course, Dr. Jelina's got this amazing name for her group. So I love that. And so tell me a little bit about your journey and how did you end up with focusing on type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, it's so wild. So actually, I was 65 pounds heavier. And my dad has diabetes. I have uncles with diabetes. I had an uncle that passed away from complications related to diabetes. So it was like a genetic predisposition. And I was walking around with 65 pounds extra weight. And I remember I walked into a doctor's office. I had my labs drawn, the whole thing. And she was coming back with the lab results. And she came in, she was shaking her head. And then she finally looks up at me and she says, it's not a matter of if you're going to have diabetes, but a matter of when. And it was in that moment that I realized like my heart dropped into my stomach. I felt completely overwhelmed. I felt so much shame and guilt because I was like, I wasn't eating the way I was supposed to. I knew I could have been working out more, but I wasn't participating in those things. And then she just sent me with typical doctor advice, which is just, I need you to like exercise more and eat less. And I'm like, okay, well, great. What does that really mean? So I went to Dr. Google, as most of us do. And when I started looking at the internet, it was toting around this like low fat, calorie restricted diet. So I started that. And I did lose some weight. I'm not going to tell you I didn't lose weight. I did lose some weight. But then I was at a point where I was eating 1,200 calories, which is not a lot. And I was working out 1 to 2 hours every day, cardio, and was overweight. So basically, at least when I first went to the doctor, I was like fat, but I was full. Now I'm like starving, and all I can think about is food. And I was overweight still. I couldn't lose the weight. So fast forward, I had a friend, I was doing a book club, and my friend had lost 60 pounds. So she like walks in, she's sipping on the wine and chomping on the cheese. And I was like, what the heck did she do? So because I was like, 60 pounds is a lot. So I was like, what? And she's eating all the good cheese. I was like, well, what is happening here? And I called her over. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what pills are you taking? I need to know. So I asked her, it turns out no pills, no surgery. She legitimately had changed the way her mindset was and the way that she was eating. And after I learned that from her, I did this deep dive, and the pharmacist in me like nerded out on the biology of all, like how the body works, how food influences the body. And I started to lose weight. I kid you not, it was effortless. Like I wasn't even trying at one point, and I'm like, wow, this is just coming off. So I ended up working, because I'm a pharmacist, I work with people. I got a job working with people that have diabetes, and very uncontrolled diabetes. Like I was their last stop before they went to endocrinologists, like the specialist, like so uncontrolled. And they would come to me, and I was like, and my job was to just like fix their medications, because I'm the pharmacist. So they come in with insulin. I'm supposed to like help make sure their insulin doses are right. But like a piece of me was like, I just feel like my patients don't really understand what's happening inside their body. So I just took a few extra minutes explaining what was happening, and like kind of interjecting little tidbits of things that helped me with my health. And before I knew it, within like 3 months, people were coming off their insulin and other medications. They were losing between 30 to 40 pounds. Their diabetes was going into remission or being reversed. They were happier, they were healthier. And my favorite part is like they were impacting the people around them, their kids, their parents, their community members in their churches, their friends, like, because then everyone around them was like, well, what are you doing? So it had this beautiful ripple effect. So it's a long story, but that's how I got there. And now I'm like, it's my mission to help people be the happiest and healthiest versions of themselves. Like that lights me up. I cannot wait to help people do that.
Well, and that really makes a huge impact. And I love how you're able to like relate that to like real life, because a lot of times when we go to see the doctor or we go and see, and again, it depends on who you're seeing, but like for the most part, when you're going in, it's like, okay, well, what kind of prescription can I give you next? Right. So, or what can I do next? Or, okay, let's get you get you on the list for surgery. Right. So like, there's all these huge things that, that impact us. And all of those things have repercussions, right? So like, yes, they're good, they're helpful, they all have their benefits, and so they all help to serve whatever it is that is going on in that short acting. But long term, if you go for surgery and you continue to eat the way that you're eating, you're going to be right back to where you were in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about being able to make those changes and making those lifestyle changes, and being able to talk to change one thing at a time. And I know that you and I have had many opportunity conversations during how things are going, and some of the things that light you up. And so, and it's those stories. It's those like, wow, you know what? My client just came in and this is what my client said, or this is what my client did. And my client came in and reached their goal, and like all those kinds of things, right? And it was all from doing little things that wasn't humongous. It wasn't about taking away everything. It was about being able to look at like, why is that happening? What is it that they're doing? And it doesn't mean like your friend coming in and eating the cheese and the wine. Like typically it's like you stay away from those things, right? And so
no, it's so wild, because I really have always thought for the longest time that health meant deprivation, and health meant you had to be militant. But the truth is that's not really the case. Like,
and it's health sustainable.
Right. You can have sustainable health that's like sustainable weight loss, blood sugars that are supposed to be where they're supposed to be, without having to feel deprived and without having to be completely militant. Because here's the thing, we are social creatures. We want to go out and have the cheese and the wine at the book club. We want to go to the party. We want to have a vacation. We want to live our life and not feel like the odd man out. And to find a way, that's what makes it sustainable, is when you're able to find a way to still do the things that you love and enjoy, but have an ability to do so with freedom and not feeling tied down or like you're different than everyone else. Like, we want to celebrate. We all, tell me a culture that doesn't celebrate using food. Or
that's the whole basis of my culture. I'm the pickiest eater on the planet, but yet there's a celebration, there's something going on, we're celebrating with food. Yeah. And I'm cooking and baking and doing whatever, right? So
yes.
I might not eat it all because might not necessarily like it, but I'm an amazing cook. So
yeah, see? Yeah, like it's so ingrained, and like we get nostalgia and all of that when we eat certain foods. And so we can't ignore like the societal stuff and the psychological stuff that comes behind like food. And this is why, like with diabetes, it's such a big thing. Like I think with chronic disease, we can't compartmentalize it.
Yep.
We can't just like have tunnel vision and think, oh, I'm just going to treat just the blood sugars. That might work for like a bacterial infection, or maybe if you have a sprained ankle. But if we're talking about chronic disease, we do have to take into account the entire person. This is why I take a holistic approach. We do need to take into account society, psychological, mental, because if you are stressed, I can put you on the best medications in the world. But if you're stressed, I promise you, we can't get it's very difficult to manage your blood sugars, no matter what medication you're on.
Yeah.
So we've got to take care of the entire being, and we can't compartmentalize it. We're a whole thing. You're like your soul, your love, everything resides in this vehicle.
And that's really one of the important things, and one of the things that I think that's really interesting. Yes, we're talking about diabetes specific, but I'm in reference to, like, you're talking about like chronic illness, so chronic disease. Like, I don't know how many people that become overweight because they no longer can walk because they've got issues with their knees, or they've got back issues. So then they're not walking and exercising as much, and then they're feeling depressed. So then they're eating more, and then of course their blood sugars are out, and so now they've got diabetes on top of whatever else that they had going on. And so, like, all these different things, and it's just really important for us to be able to take a look at that from like that whole person, right? So one of the things, it's like a really great example, is my husband has he has degenerative disc disease and has a plethora of other illnesses that are going on with his back that it's degenerative. It's not going to help. It's not going to get any better. He can slow it down. He can do that kind of thing, but it's not going to be something that's going to be erased. And so goes in to see the surgeon, and the first thing the surgeon says is, well, lose weight, can't do anything else. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, so I can barely walk from my house to my car. And while he's had like these flare-ups, he wasn't even able to like get from his bed to the living room. Like, there was just like lots of different things that were going on. So how is that helpful? Right? So give him something else that he can actually work with, as opposed to like, well, lose weight. Okay, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Did I not notice that I had like this extra few pounds?
That's the other issue, right? Like, I know I had a friend that's a doctor, and he was like, and I get it. Like, we sometimes do have to tell our patients that weight loss is going to help benefit them, because listen, the more weight you get off your body, the less pressure it relieves off your knees and your joints and all those things. But you know, he was like, man, I don't know how to bring it up. And I said, well, you can't bring it up just by saying lose weight, because the problem is you're right. Myself included, I walk into the doctor. I am not blind to the fact that I can't run around in a bikini the way some of my other girlfriends could, you know, at the time. Like, I am quite aware. I have eyes. I saw what was happening in the mirror. I see the scale. And so it does feel really hard sometimes to hear that word. And what we need more of, in my belief, is more education around, like, here's the deal. Like, here's what extra weight does to our body. People know when they're overweight. Okay. We don't need to tell people, they are aware, but it's also like, here's what extra weight does to your body. Here's the education behind that. And here's how, because the problem is that people are trying to lose the weight, but our medical system isn't set up like the healthcare system in the US isn't set up to
It's
actually
not in Canada either.
because so it's like I can say like we have 10 or 15 minutes with a patient. Our doctors are seeing between 20 to 30 patients. They don't have time to explain what diabetes is or what it's doing to someone's body or any chronic disease for that matter. So I'm not gonna lie, it probably is easier to just like say like, oh, just do this and oh, just lose some weight. And then plus we don't get like nutrition counseling or anything like that, for in medical schools and stuff. It's very limited. And so we don't really focus on prevention the way that I wish we would. And so I think it is important that if we're going to tell people to lose weight, that we tell them how and in a way that actually works, not like this calories in, calories out formula. Because I'm going to tell you right now that never worked. It never will work. And scientifically, it doesn't even make any sense. Like it just doesn't. So we need to get on board with like helping people be healthy, but that also starts with understanding what we're putting in our bodies.
And when you're talking about like what we're putting in our body, we're talking like not just like, again, coming from that holistic approach, it's like what we're putting into our body is like, what emotion are we eating? Right. So like there's one key thing, or like, why is it that we're not going for a walk instead of sitting there eating that bag of chips? Because like we are completely exhausted and there's nothing else that we can do, right? So like it's like, but being able to shift the different ways and having a buddy and having different things that you can actually put in place will actually help somebody be motivated to be able to do the next thing. Like I know I am not. So for those of you who do know where I am, I'm in the middle of winter, in the middle of like tons of snow, and I hibernate entirely for the entire winter. And so it is, so I become a bear entirely for the winter. But during the summer, when I would actually normally be out and moving around and doing all these things, I broke my leg. And it was like, okay, great. So now what am I going to do? Like those few pounds that I tend to lose over the summer months, I can't even do that now because like now I'm stuck on crutches and I can't do anything. And so I can barely even make it from like one room to the next without like being completely dead from carrying all my extra weight around. And so it's like, okay, now what am I going to do? So this winter, what I did was I set up a walking buddy system. We already had a walking buddy system, but generally by the fall, as soon as we hit snow, then it's like, okay, we're done. Bye. See you guys all until the spring. But this year, the women in our group agreed to that they were actually going to continue to walk with me. So I got some ski pants and like literally I am warm enough that I am soaked by the time that I get back.
That's amazing.
And I've been able to do it most of the winter. So like there's been some really, really cold days that or really icy days. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely not happening. And this week is just chaos. So it's like not happening at all. But it's just all this different things of being able to find strategies that work and being able to find different ways. So like that's one thing around the physical health, but like there's what are some of the other things from your approaches or that you share with your
So I like to tell people, which is very shocking, that actually like physical exercise doesn't actually very much help you lose weight. It might help you maintain your weight, but it's not actually shown to like help you lose weight because we don't actually burn as many calories, like, which we all know. If anyone's ever tried to run or walk or do like CrossFit, you see it's like 200, 300 calories and that's like one cookie. Like it really, right? So it's like we try to eat our way to good health, but it's like you can't either. I mean, like work out our way to good health, but you can't eat a bad diet. Like you can't outrun a bad diet. So it's like the physical stuff, like as far as exercise goes, I love exercise. It has lots of benefits. Like it helps us complete stress cycles because I say your issues resolve in your tissues. So helps us like with all of those things and maintain our weight and helps us with stress and all of that stuff. But a majority of it, and most of my biggest weight loss, because I told you I was working out for like hours, was during a time that I had stopped working out. And it was because I was more conscious of how I was eating. So things I do really pay attention to is how I'm fueling my body, because when we talk about even weight, or diabetes or fatty liver disease, high cholesterol, blood pressure, all of it, it has to more do with the hormones, a hormonal imbalance in our body, specifically with a hormone called insulin. And so I'm learning to manage our bodies by incorporating things like walking, which is so great that you're doing, by having connections, by paying attention. You were talking about emotional eating, by paying attention to physical hunger cues and emotional hunger cues. And by eating in a way, like, I love using the plate method. It's my favorite way, which is half your plate is non-starchy vegetables. So veggies that grow above the ground, basically. And then you've got a fourth of the plate is a protein, or if you take your hands and you look at the palm of your hand, that would be a portion of protein. And then the last portion is the carbohydrates, which is like, you take your hand and you cup it like I was pouring water into it. That would be like a carb. So carbs are like everything delicious. So before you guys turn off this interview, because you're like, I don't want to hear any of that, like, because it's the smallest portion, right? But carbohydrates are the pasta, the bread, the potatoes, the corn, the cereal, all the good stuff. But the reason is insulin is easily affected by carbohydrates. And so when we pay attention to the types of foods that we're eating, and this is what I try to help my clients with, is helping them understand what they're eating, how it's physically impacting their body, so that they can make different choices. And then the last piece of it is the sustainable piece comes from behavior patterns, which is what we were talking about, the emotional eating. Like, when we start to look at the patterns of like, man, every time I'm stressed out, I pick up that ice cream, or I need a cupcake, because I was so guilty of that. And so it's just recognizing and then putting all those pieces together, you get a plan where it's like your triglycerides, your cholesterol comes down, your blood sugars are stabilized, you're feeling good. Yeah. Your mood improves. It's wonderful.
It really is. And so one of the things that you talked about earlier on is that you talked about, it doesn't matter how or what you eat or what you do or what medications that you take if you're feeling stressed. So what are some of the things that you suggest in terms of being able to reduce that stress response?
So I love this book. It's called Burnout, and I cannot remember the person that wrote it, but they talk about completing the stress cycle. So the way you complete the stress cycle is one, movement, like you talked about. You talked about, like, walking, great way. You can just, as long as you're moving your body, dancing, any of that. Another way to complete the stress cycle, shake your body out. You just like shake like a tree. We see animals do this all the time, right? Like dogs, they like shake, right?
I didn't know that was a stress response.
So we want to complete the stress cycle. So, right. So shake it out. You can also do deep breathing, like breathe in for a cycle of 5, hold for 5, a count of 5, breathe out for 10, hold for 5 again, and then repeat that process 3 times. You can tense your muscles and let them go. You can give somebody a hug where you like stand in your center of gravity and they stand in theirs, and you hold each other for 20 seconds. That completes a good cry. You can't tell me that when you've had a good cry, there's that moment where you sigh, where you're like, like, yeah, you just completed your stress cycle. So don't be afraid to let it out, belt it out, and those kinds of things help with the stress cycle. Journaling is so great. Talking to a friend, socializing. We are creatures that are meant to be in communion with each other. And so spend the time to talk to people, be loved and love yourself. And those things do help because stress is unavoidable. It's going to happen. It's life. But if we find ways to cope with it better, we can learn to keep our blood sugars more stable and just our hormones in better check.
And that's really interesting. And just because I always love how synchronicities come into play. So yesterday we had an appointment with my mother-in-law, and one of the things that and it wasn't about diabetes, but it was around like that social aspect and that social creature. And so it's in terms of like memory, being a senior, and one of the things that he said is that there's like lots, he said like there's nothing that actually helps more than that socializing. And because we are social creatures, that is something that we need to make sure that we do not lose. And so I thought that that was really interesting, that that's again coming back again full circle of that socializing and connecting, and connecting with others, and being able, like even people that are not social butterflies or not like connected, like, and that's one of the things that I think that we saw a lot of when all the lockdowns happened during COVID, is that even people like me who are not like huggy people was like, hey, I'm missing hugs. Like I'm missing hugs. Like I'm the one that's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't really need a hug. Right.
I have to tell you the most embarrassing story. So I'm single and I moved out to LA, like Los Angeles, during the beginning of the pandemic. So April of 2020. Okay. So it was like no one was touching anybody. Like I was like, and I didn't know anyone because I moved out here. I didn't have any friends. And so it was just me and my dog. Anyway, fast forward, I like go on a date. Now, mind you, I'm also like working from home because we are in lockdown, like no touchy, a mask, whatever. So finally I go on a date. This gentleman is so nice. He's so kind. And he comes and he gives me a hug. Rollie, I started to cry. I literally had tears because I could not remember the last time someone had physically touched and hugged me, that my response was I was crying. And this poor man was on a date.
He's like, not happening no more.
Needless to say, we didn't stay together, but I will say that but I hear you. Like, yeah, whether you are like a person that like wants to touch and stuff, it's like we do crave those things. They're inherent in a necessity, I think, for humans, in my opinion.
It is. Well, and even like when you talk about like people at birth, like now we're kind of way getting off, but like even babies, right? Like it's those first touch, and like now, and I'm sure that it is in the US as well, but now it's like, soon as baby's born, it's like skin to skin, making sure that that happens. And whereas what they used to do is like, oh, baby was born, take the baby, and they'd like completely disengage it from the parent. Like I know that would have been like when my mom had us kind of thing, right? Yeah. And so it was a little bit more when I had my kids, and now it's even that much more now that my grandbabies are being born, right? So it's that touch and that connection and having those, and that's really important, and including dad in those processes as well, right? So those help to reduce the baby's cortisol levels. It helps to reduce mom's cortisol levels, like just at birth. And so like it makes a huge difference in terms of like of connection and interaction.
And that love hormone, oxytocin, when you have baby and mama together, that's what you're increasing, is that love hormone.
So yeah. That's really important for us to be able to do. And so do you have any other tips or anything else that you think would be really important for people to try or to think about before we send them off to try and connect with you?
Yeah. My biggest tip is that it's never too late to become the healthy version of yourself. It's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are. You may think like, I can't do this now, I can't do that. I have clients that are in their 60s and in their 70s and making life change, feeling better than they did even 20, 30 years ago. So it is never too late to decide that today's the day that you want to be that healthy, happy version of yourself.
I love that. And I think that that's a really important thing. And so, so tell me, what is it that you have, that you offer that somebody might be interested in? Do you have like a workshop, or do you have anything that you have going on?
Yeah. So I have a workshop maybe coming up, and if you follow me on Facebook at Jelina Shah Consulting or Instagram, I'll post the dates there. I have like a very special free, what I call the Healthy Hero Consult, where I just spend time with a person and I really try to help them navigate a particular obstacle in their health. It's completely free. It's 30 minutes. I just love connecting with people and helping them get on their road to like just better, healthier, happier versions of themselves.
So, and they can do that at any time off your website?
Yes, they can go to my website and you can do that at any time. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Or you can message me. Yeah. Private message me, direct message me. It's fine.
And so for everywhere that you are watching this podcast, it is Jelina's contact information is around the video or around the audio, wherever that is. And so you can definitely connect with her. All of her socials are there, her website. And so definitely want to be able to help you connect with her. And so if at any point you want to be able to get involved with some dynamic woman who is going to help you get into finding that healthier version of yourself, Jelina is definitely your gal. So you definitely want to reach out to her. And I do have a couple of people in mind that I will share this podcast with, and hope that some of this may be helpful in terms of them being able to connect and getting into their own better health. So is there anything else that you wanted to share, Jelina, before we go?
No, just thank you so much for this opportunity. I am so just like, this is me living my dream and talking about things I'm passionate about. So if this is something that resonates with someone out there, I would love to talk to you. Don't be scared of me.
I don't know anybody that would be scared of you.
That's right. That's right. You should not be scared of me. Yeah.
Absolutely never. So thanks everybody, and welcome to another Chatting with Wisdom. And we will see you guys next week. And if you're not yet registered for the Women's Conference, there is still time to register. We start on Friday morning and Eastern time, and we will chat later. Bye for now.